I've attempted to make this video a few times. It's very important to me to get this right because it was such a transformational experience that I had. But in the end, I think I just need to be as honest and vulnerable as I can and give you as much details as I can. It might go for a little while. But so about a year ago, I basically packed up everything, sold everything, and then went traveling for a year. What led up to it was that it was a lot to do with a relationship that I had. It's a long story. There were a lot of difficulties in the relationship, although we did love each other very deeply. She was a very beautiful person, but unfortunately, we just had some things that clashed. And she ended up leaving to go back overseas. Then I decided to go see her, and I did. But then I had to come back to work and stuff. And then after that, I just said, look, I'm just going to travel. A whole bunch of stuff lined up for me here, and I was sort of living in the house that we'd lived in together. Was very, very difficult. It was a house that I owned, and it was sort of our house, and I had to live in it by myself when she left. So, and then some stuff lined up at work, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take this opportunity and take a year off and just travel. Initially, it was to go meet her and potentially live together, but then we broke up before that could happen, before I even left. So then I just thought I'd do it anyway on my own. Getting to the point at my age, I'm nearly 40, getting to the point of packing up a life that I'd lived in this, city in Australia, Brisbane, for 20-something years was incredibly difficult. One of the most difficult things I've ever gone through. You really realize how much who you are is tied to the things around you. Things like your car, your belongings, like the house that you're in, the people and everything. You're just completely tied up by these things. And so one thing at a time, I was just basically selling off everything. Literally selling off everything. So one at a time sold it to some friends, Facebook Marketplace, whatever. And it felt like each step of the way was me stripping off parts of myself, parts of my ego just being stripped off one at a time. It was really, really powerful experience. And then finally I sold my house. I left the house and said goodbye to everyone. And then that was it. In terms of how I felt, I was very scared. Traveling on my own, left completely to my own devices to do anything at all. No friends, don't know anyone, no family there. And yeah, I was pretty scared. So I went over and initially tried to stay in backpackers. I started in the UK. Very difficult. I'm not the best sleeper anyway. But people have, you basically got to be drunk to sleep in these things because it's people in and out of the rooms and it's just awful. So I ended up increasing my budget and I, started to just find places that weren't backpackers. And then, yeah, what I found was the first few months were very difficult, just letting go of the routine of work. It's interesting because a lot of people, and including myself, have this dream of not working, right? And I loved my job, so it was a bit different for me, but I mean, it is something that's pretty common. We have this dream of like leaving work and then being free. But it's interesting because when you get that, it's not really as good as you think because all these other issues come up, which is like life sort of lacks meaning initially. I just couldn't find meaning. I couldn't find a sort of structure to my life in order to make decisions. It was really difficult. It was a good few months of that too before I started to sort of figure it out and find ways to manage it. But for me, I've figured out that I'm not designed to not have a purpose, because if I don't have a purpose, I just simply don't have a structure in which I can make decisions. For me the first few months, I couldn't make any decisions. I didn't know where to go, what to do. it was like I had the ultimate freedom, and part of the reason for doing it was to see what that was like, because all I'd ever done my whole life was work, right? So I got rid of everything, and I didn't have to work, and then that was it. I could have done anything and gone anywhere that I wanted, but there was just no structure, and it was very difficult to not have that. So eventually I started to create structure. I do some Latin dances, so I started to follow them around. My purpose became to get as good as I could at those. And what helped me with that was, what helped me as well alongside that was that I created a community through that, because I followed it around. The same people are there. I made friends. But there were times where I would do some of the most beautiful things that I'd ever imagined. I'd be in the most incredible places, things that I dreamt of, but I was completely miserable doing it. Not all the time, but sometimes. Sometimes I was peaceful and happy. But the times I weren't was really powerful, and it just made me realize that it's just so much about community and how essential it is. And I don't think a lot of people get to experience what it's like to not have community. And I know people say, but everyone was still back here for me and stuff. But when you're there, when you're in a completely foreign country, you can't speak to anyone. No one can speak to you. People are fairly rude. The place can be somewhat unsafe. You're lost. You're alone. And you have a lot of time. You have this sense of people, your community is not there. It's a long way away, and it's like your body knows it. It experiences this sense of unsafeness or just unsettledness that I'd never experienced before. And it was very difficult for a long time. But then it started to get a lot better. It's 3 to 6 months. I created structure. I was learning languages. I was learning skills. I was developing business ideas. I had a bit of a community. I knew some people. And, there were times where I sat back and I was like, oh my God, I created this from nothing. I was just me. One of the things of solo travelers is that if you sit down and you do nothing, you die. No one's going to help you. No one cares. No one knows you. So you've got to, everything you do, you have to create yourself. This is why backpacker hostels are so valuable if you can handle them. There were times where they kind of saved me because I just made some friends there. But yeah, if I would suggest, if you can get like a room on your own in one, just if you don't drink or you have concerns of sleeping, just because you just instantly meet everyone, and it sort of solves the community issue pretty strongly. And yeah, that's one of the main reasons for them, right? But yeah, I met a fair few other solo travelers. One from Australia, we met like on my first day there. She was her first day there as well, and we caught up again, and we chatted about it, and she was saying similar things to what I'm saying now, which was it's not. Sometimes you imagine traveling the world for a year on your own, and it seems like a holiday, but it didn't feel like that. It really did feel like a very emotional, spiritual journey where I was facing myself everywhere I went. I was facing my insecurities. I was facing my fears. I was facing lots of stuff, shame, grief, lots of stuff that I wasn't even too aware of. It just brings it out of you, and it becomes, because you have time to think and to analyze yourself and the things around you. And yeah, so I went to some incredible places, and I made some incredible friends, and I'm really eternally grateful for everything that I got to experience. Ultimately, the pain got very full on at one stage, much later on in the whole journey, and it was just this awareness of all this shame and stuff that I had in the body that I never was aware of before, and I could not get it out of my mind. It was just there, and no matter what I did, it was there, and I realized it had been there my whole life. I just wasn't fully aware of it. and it was so painful that I can't even describe it. Impossible. And it was relentless. It was months of this. And I mean, I got close to ending it all, you know, a couple of times there, and it was just really, and it's really enhanced. Well, you could even say, I don't know if it was enhanced or if it was actually even caused by the lack of community and aloneness and time, freedom. But ultimately what happened was towards the end is that I ended up just grieving and releasing and experiencing a lot of these very, very old and very deep grievings that I just never had when I believe when I was a kid, because the nature of what was coming up. I have talked about this in another video, but you could tell the nature of what was coming up was from a very young age. And then after that, I was pretty much fine. I had changed. I had actually transformed in many ways, and that shame left. I still have it, but it's very mild. And I became a sort of a different person very quickly. And then I ended up coming home, and now I'm home and I'm trying to experience my old life, but as a new person. And it's very, very interesting because the way my emotions function, the way I am with people is very different now. And my awareness, like the way I sense life and things around me and my inner workings and stuff has definitely increased a lot. And so because of everything I went through, because of how full on that was, how relentless, how difficult it was for such a long time, and I just kept my awareness on what was causing the problems. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I was going to eventually release a lot of it. I just couldn't not be aware of it. And because of what I got to go through, I was able to actually get what I now understand that I wanted, which was growth. It wasn't in the way that I thought. I thought it would be a very practical thing, that I would go away. I would go overseas for a year and just, you know, meet so many people and see so many things and solve so many problems or whatever, and then I'd be a better person. But it wasn't like that. It was more, the journey inwards was just so magnified by the situation, and it was so impossible to ignore, that I just eventually solved a lot of my, or you could say released a lot of emotions and things that I was holding on to. And I do feel like more of an adult now than I've ever felt like. Obviously a lot more to go, but yeah, I'm so grateful for what I was able to go through, because not many people have the means or even the will to do it. And yeah, it's amazing. So I don't know if anyone is thinking of it, I'm always going to say do it. And just face it, face whatever comes up. Don't distract yourself and just face it. Because eventually, if you keep facing it, you just figure out a way to release it, in terms of you know, emotional issues or that sort of stuff. I think practically, if I've gained anything from it, I don't know. Logistics are easy for me now. Travel in general is easy. Like, I'm not really scared of stuff anymore. You know, I can go to any... I used to have this bit of anxiety when I'd go to, like, weird foreign stores here. But, I mean, it's nothing now. It's like a joke. Places I went when I was traveling, and now just going to weird places where you may not feel welcome, it's nothing. So there are some, like, very practical benefits from it, but they're nothing compared to how I grew. So hopefully that's everything. I don't think there's much more. But yeah, thanks for listening. I hope you guys got something out of that. If you're thinking of going, do it. Just do it. I know it sucks to try to get to that point, but Honestly, if nothing else has worked for you, then throw yourself straight into the fire and just face everything that comes up. Thanks, guys.